Just a minute before you leave, girl.
And so to return to the concluding part of Lili and Goethe's love affair, we left them in Offenbach, Germany, Lili's uncle's country estate. And though they were having a good time, there was this cloud of unhappiness, a deep sadness. And so there's a couple of letters to Augusta. In one of them, he writes, "Whenever I'm feeling really low, I look to the north. Last night, my angel, I wish to have been lying by your feet, holding your hands and looking into your eyes." And in another letter, he writes, "Here in the arms of the girl who's making me so unhappy through no fault of her own, whose happy days I darken." And so because of all of this tension, the two of them decide maybe we should take a break from each other. And so Lili goes back home, and Goethe, he takes off with a couple of guys to Switzerland on a holiday, I think for about 3 weeks. But this break that they take from each other, there's another letter to Augusta where Goethe writes, "This distance from her only makes stronger the bonds that tie us together." So I guess the answer is clear. He has to propose. And so he does. The Schunemans, Mrs. Schunemann, she says, "Give us a couple of weeks. We'll let you know." If we take a moment to pause, think about the different themes that are at play here. There's a question of freedom, personal freedom. Then, of course, love, romantic love. If we take a simple example of personal freedoms, and each one of us know where the borders, the boundary of this personal freedom lies. Take a very simple, on the surface example. It would be my need to spend money on little things that I can afford but I can do without. Camera equipment or little toys. There can always be a debate, a question, a household discussion on this. But to me, I would consider that an encroachment of my personal freedom, you see. So, which is just a very simple example. But of course, the way Goethe explores this is freedom at its basic level is spontaneity. You know how things are, especially these days. You cannot speak freely without being misunderstood. And so to a great extent, our speech has automatically got this ingredient of some sort of calculation as to ensure that it comes out correctly and that misunderstandings are eliminated as much as possible. It's an impossible task, so never mind. And so there's a few lines in Goethe's Poetry and Truth where he says, "Nothing upsets me more than when a person responds with a platitude, when I'm speaking from the fullness of my heart." We could all think of examples, couldn't we? Let's say you were doing a sales pitch with great conviction, belief in your product or whatever, and the folks you were presenting to, they were listening but could not understand. They hear but do not comprehend. And instead of engaging you with questions so that you could explain further to arrive at the truth that they seek, one smart aleck in the group would respond with a platitude, end the conversation. Would you consider this a loss of personal freedom? I don't know. The example I thought about was if I talked about compatibility between people and compared it to our physical body. Rudolf Steiner, I think he says, our physical body is the mineral body. And at the end of the day, it has to do with earthy stuff. And so that's why the physical body returns to the earth. And because minerals contain metallic compounds, magnetism is at play. And there are things that attract and repel within this sphere of operation. And perhaps that's the reason why we feel more attracted to people, and their proximity to us makes the bonds even stronger, or the opposite is true. And if we have to explore the topic of love, Leo Tolstoy once said something like, "Love is the force that connects everything together within the cosmos." But even in Plato's Symposium, there's this conversation about beauty and love, eros, which is sexual love. And of course, it's not traditional lovemaking as we know it, but a disintegration, a defragmentation of all the particles around us that we become one and the other. And so there is this act of conjugation which is taking place. And an example to bring it to the individual would be if you were standing in the presence of this mountainous landscape, either at dusk or at dawn, and there was mist and there was a cloud covering the mountains, and you looked down and there was a river flowing by, and it was just absolutely beautiful. You were so awestruck that you say, wow, what's going on here is your whole body being penetrated by beauty. You're being impregnated, which manifests itself into this, what is happening here, a giving birth, a retelling of this experience and this story, this cycle at play, which is Eros. And so finally it was Mrs. Schunemann. She had hosted one of her parties, and in the presence of a large company, she declared that we've received a proposal from Goethe we unfortunately are not able to accept because of the differences in religion. Goethe must have no doubt been quite upset. She could have told him this in private. There's some reports that Mrs. Schunemann was quoted saying she did it in this way because she wanted to put the whole issue to rest once and for all. Extinguish this fire.
Whoa, Joker man.